Of all the topics that a person might bring up at a party or a get together or just chatting with friends, probably the least interesting topic you could possibly bring up would be insurance. That's right, nobody wants to talk about insurance. Actually, people don't like to talk about insurance, mostly because insurance salesmen like to talk about it a lot, and then they corner you and talk to you about it ad nauseum. Not going to talk about health insurance or car insurance in this video because a lot of people know that they're important and you're supposed to insure your car and you should insure yourself, your body, your own health. And most people get their health insurance through their employer, probably, and you're kind of sort of stuck with whatever plan they have. So everybody, when you're getting that first job or getting another job, you should ask a lot of questions about the health insurance, like what does it cover and how much am I out of pocket and does it cost me anything and who are the doctors I can choose from? All those things, that's important, but it kind of deserves its own sort of video, if you will, or its own, you should read up a little bit about it. And most people know something about car insurance, as in drive safely and try not to spend a lot. The more expensive your car, the more expensive your insurance. The worse you drive, the more expensive your insurance. The worse your credit, the more expensive your insurance. The younger you are, the more expensive your insurance. So try not to be a bad driver. Try not to be too young. I don't know what to tell you other than to shop it around, right? But in this particular video, I'm going to talk about the kind of insurance that people really don't talk very much about, or that young people don't know much about, and that you should know more about, okay? So we're going to start off with renter's insurance, which is one that you may have heard a little bit about. Maybe you kind of feel like, I probably should have some renter's insurance or something, but in college, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. That's up to you. Depends on how many valuables you have in your apartment, or the expense of replacing things that you might own in an apartment. But most college students are kind of broke, and if you lost a piece of furniture, or if you're, heaven forbid, your apartment building burned down, you're probably so broke that you don't have an awful lot that you would need to recover in terms of valuables. The moral of the story is don't keep valuable things in a college student's apartment. That's probably a good idea. You know, if you got really, really expensive jewelry, you probably shouldn't keep it in there because someone's going to break in and steal it, or it's going to burn down or flood or something like that. And so I'm trusting that most of you are poor and probably don't need it as a college student. But what you will need it for when you finally move out and get that first job, and that's what we're focusing on mostly with this series about financial literacy for the University 1231 classes, is the fact that you're going to need it when you get out and get your own job, permanent job, that is. You're going to want to insure your belongings because you may not own some really, really valuable artwork or something like that, but what you have is all you've got, and you really need to insure it. Think about this. If all of your clothing, furniture, jewelry, personal items, electronics, iPhones, stuff like that, were lost in a fire, what would it cost you to replace them? Where would you get the money? If you just started a brand new job someplace and you've put all your money into, you know, the wardrobe that you have, I mean, imagine replacing your work wardrobe if you're working as a young professional. That's pretty expensive, isn't it? You may not have expensive furniture, but it costs you some money. And, you know, your cell phone and your iPad or your laptop or your TV, those are things that are very expensive to have to replace. So the things that you need to be considering is, you know, how would I get the money? Where would I get? Well, the answer is you just need to get renter's insurance. And most people can get renter's insurance through the same company that provides them car insurance. It's really very easy. Generally speaking, for $15 a month, you can get $25,000 worth of coverage. And my guess is that between your clothing and electronics and furniture, you probably don't own $25,000 worth of stuff when you're first starting out. But it could really set you back, because here's the thing. When you're young and poor, you are very vulnerable and need the protection badly. When you're rich and old, you lose $5,000 worth of electronics and you say, dang it, right? But when you're young, you're going, how am I going to get my laptop back? How am I going to get my cell phone back? That my entire work wardrobe, all my good clothes are gone and I can't show up to work in just ratty t-shirts and cutoffs. I can't do that. What am I going to do? So you really need to be insured when you're younger and poorer because you don't have any cushion. And so that's the main theme running through a lot of this. But we start with renter's insurance because that's the first thing. And it's cheap and it's really easy. And when you have tons of money, you don't have to worry about it. But you're always going to probably need some insurance for your stuff. You just don't have a lot of stuff, so it doesn't cost a lot of money. The big thing that you really need to be considering here, and probably the most important, maybe I should have put this last, is disability insurance. Disability insurance is very important because if you have an accident or an injury or an illness and you are out of work for a while, how are you going to get the money to pay your rent and your car insurance and feed yourself and your utilities and that kind of stuff? You won't have worked at your job long enough to build up enough money. It takes a long time to have an emergency fund. Ultimately, you want to have an emergency fund so you don't have to depend so much on disability insurance, but you need to have insurance against losing your job due to an accident. Social Security is there, but it really doesn't help very much. It's hard to get Social Security disability. It doesn't pay very much. It's a pain in the rear. It takes a long time to get it, and you're going to need help. If you're in an accident, you're going to need help sooner than that. Now, there's two types of disability insurance. One is short-term, and usually that's under 6 months. Something happened to you and you need quick money for just a little while. And then long term, if something serious happened to you and you might be out of work for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, 30 years, the rest of your life, something that would provide replacement income for you for the rest of your life. Short-term disability insurance costs a small amount. Longer term costs a little bit more, and it's based on how much you earn. Okay, so if they're going to replace your income, if you don't make a lot of money, it doesn't cost much to replace that income. If you make a whole lot of money, if you make like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, your long-term disability insurance is very expensive. But I trust that most of you aren't going to be making that much that soon out of college. Okay. So what are the rates? Oh, it's a few bucks a month for short term, and it's probably about $20, $30 a month for long-term insurance for people making, say, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, something like that. Okay, and normally it won't replace all of your income. It'll only replace a portion of your income. Most often, employers do provide access to disability insurance. Sometimes they'll pay for it. Sometimes they'll have you pay for it. Sometimes they'll split the cost with you. You want to ask when you get your first permanent job about the types of disability. You got long-term, you got short-term. Do I have to buy it? Do I have to pay for it? How much coverage do you provide? Does it provide? And you want to get all the details and know what you would have to do if something happened to you. Okay? Sometimes they just write a check to you. Sometimes you have to go through a long, drawn-out process. This is a thing you would want to know once you've been offered a job at a permanent employer, someplace where it's like my first real job out of college. You would want to know, does this company or does this firm provide disability insurance? Can you give me some details? Do you have a brochure on it that can answer some of my questions about it? No one ever asks about this. And this is important because next to health insurance, this is the most important type of insurance you need as a young person. You are far more likely to become disabled at your age than to die, which I guess is kind of good news. In other words, you're much more likely to have to need disability insurance than your heirs would need life insurance, for example. But the takeaway from this is that you must obtain, I think you must obtain both short and long-term disability insurance when you get that first job. You just don't have enough savings yet to ride out an accident or an injury or a serious illness. And you need to be able to pay your bills if you were to get into a car accident or have a bad injury or get really, really sick right after getting your first job. You'd be wiped out. I mean, you don't have much, so it doesn't take much to wipe you out. You need to get both short-term and long-term. Now, you can drop short-term disability. Remember, short-term is like the first 6 months of an illness or an accident, right? You could drop that once you have a nice size savings account or emergency fund. You could do that. But never settle for less than 60% on long-term disability insurance. That is replacing 60% of your salary. So if you made, say, $5,000 a month, okay, which is a nice salary, $5,000 a month, you would want to make sure that your long-term disability covers at least $3,000 of that. Why? Because if you have to go on Social Security disability, that would also add to that, and you might be able to make a decent living if you were permanently disabled. This is super important. This is about taking care of yourself, but making sure others don't have to be burdened by taking care of you if something happens to you. That's disability insurance. Long-term, short-term. When you first start out, you need both. You need to ask, how much does it cover? How do I apply for it? And then when you have plenty of savings, you could drop the short term. But everybody should probably carry long-term disability. I do. I'm 56 years old and I still have long-term disability insurance. It's a thing you need to pay for life. Now, finally, everybody knows about life insurance. They just don't know much about life insurance, what it is and why would you need it. First and foremost, life insurance does not insure you against the possibility of dying. Okay? It doesn't insure you against dying. You're going to die. Okay? Everybody is. What it does is it ensures that when you die, if you have life insurance, whoever you leave behind you who would need your income would be taken care of. Now, that's a very let me unpack that, okay? It only helps people who are alive after you die who would need your income. Okay? Now, if you're single and you have no children and your parents don't need your help, you don't need to get life insurance. Okay? Honestly, if you're married and you have no children and you don't have dependent parents or people who depend on your income, then you don't need life insurance. You don't need to go out and buy some. Now, a lot of employers will include life insurance just automatically and say, here you go, it's part of the package. My brother, for example, who passed away a little over a year ago, was single all his life, had no children. My parents have passed on. He did not need life insurance, so he didn't buy any. He didn't need to buy any. I didn't need it. My sister didn't need it. He didn't have any charitable group that he wanted to leave anything to other than what he already had. But his employer carried a life insurance policy on him that was a year's salary. And so they paid that out to my sister and to me, but it wasn't a huge amount. He made about $50,000 a year, but he didn't need to go out and buy any more life insurance. He just only had that life insurance because they gave it to him. So if you don't have people who need your income, or need you to be making money to support them, then you don't need to go buy it. Okay. But now when you do, this is really important. The minute you have a child, the minute you have anybody, maybe a sibling that you need to take care of, maybe your parents are older and they have to have caretakers and you're providing that caretaking. And if you die, who's going to provide that for you? You're going to have to hire somebody to do that, right? The minute you have anybody who needs the income that you make every month from your job, you've got to get life insurance. Now, how much should you get? You need to get 8 to 10 times your annual salary. So if you make $50,000, you need a minimum of $400,000 to $500,000 worth of protection. You say, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. Well, it is a lot of money, but you'd be amazed at how fast it goes by. But it is tax-free. If you die and you have a life insurance policy, it goes to whoever you designate. It's called the beneficiary, the person who benefits from it. And that is not taxed. They don't get taxed on it. It's really wonderful. So, Uncle Sam doesn't get a piece of it. You get that person gets the full $500,000 or whatever it is. Now, there are several types, and it's very complicated, but it's also very simple. I'm going to make it really simple. There's universal, there's universal variable, there's whole life, there's universal whole life variable, blah, 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 blah. Don't buy any of that crap. This is really easy. I promise you. Buy one type of life insurance and that's it. Buy level term life insurance. Repeat it after me. Level term life insurance. Dave Ramsey's tip over in the bottom right-hand corner there, you should only buy low-cost, level-term life insurance. Whole life is a ripoff. They charge tons of fees. It's a terrible investment product. You'll pay tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime, and then when you get old, it runs out and you get nothing. And it's hugely expensive. You can't possibly afford to get enough coverage to cover 10 times your salary if you buy whole life insurance. I mean, seriously, 10 times your income would cost you, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a month. It's crazy expensive and stupid, right? And it's filled with fees. It's a total ripoff. Don't buy level term life insurance. Why do they call it term? Because it runs only for a certain number of years. I think the best policy is 20-year term life insurance. So it runs for a term of 20 years. Level because your premium doesn't go up. Your payment doesn't go up for the whole 20 years. I think that's the best. What's it going to cost you? Get this. If you buy a 20-year policy, level term, if you're a female in good health and you don't smoke, and you got decent credit for whatever reason they care about that, and you're 25 years old, you can get a $500,000 policy for $18 a month. And the premium doesn't go up every month or every year. It stays $18 a month for 20 years. Okay. Now here's the deal. After 20 years, you stop paying, but it stops covering. Okay. It's over, right? It's totally over. But I prefer that. And most good, smart investment advisors prefer that because you're just paying the very least possible just to cover a what if. And it's a pretty long shot what if. Okay. But it allows you to buy the most amount of coverage for an affordable price. And otherwise, if you buy these other crappy insurance products, you're going to be underinsured because they're so expensive you can't afford what you need. Okay? You'll end up buying a $50,000 policy. Well, $50,000 won't last your kids very long at all. $500,000, yeah, they can get by for a while. You can put some in a college fund. You can pay off the mortgage, what have you. And so it's a far, far better deal. Okay. And you've locked it in. Why 20 years? Well, you could buy 15 or you could buy 10 or buy 25. I think 20 is good because when you have a child, or two, and you buy a 20-year policy, you've pretty much guaranteed that that you've got coverage, they've got money all the way up until when they get to college. And within 20 years, hopefully you've been able to save for their college and prepare. But, if something happened to you right after the policy dropped off and they were 20 years old, they would probably be able to make it okay. Right? They're old enough to have a job. But if they're 7, and you have to think about this, very, very important. This is true for your spouse too. Both you and your spouse should have some coverage. Both you and your spouse should have it. You should not bring a child into this world without life insurance. Don't do it. And on both of you. And I'm going to speak as a guy here. I was very good about it. I went out and got insurance just as soon as my wife was pregnant. I made sure we had insurance because if something happened to me, I did not want her to be in a position of not being able to pay for the house payment or feed or put food on the table or cover the cost of utilities or any of those kinds of things. I wanted to make sure that they were taken care of if something happened to me immediately after we knew we were going to have a child. This is the responsible thing to do. But I'm going to tell you, as a guy, this is what guys do. Guys say, I'm fine. I'll be okay. Don't worry. I need the money. That's expensive. You're paying these people money and you never see anything for it. Yes, you do see something for it. Here's what you see. You see the ability to look into those small children's face every day when you send them off to school or whatever and know that if you get hit by a truck this afternoon, those kids are going to college and that house is not going to be taken away from them and they're going to be able to eat and they're not going to have to worry and your spouse is going to these are important things, something that you have to talk to your spouse about that you have to do. And you need to do it when you're healthy. The younger you are, the cheaper it is. The better your credit, the cheaper it is. If you're female, it's super cheap because women live longer than men and don't have the same number of accidents on the job that kill them. Sorry, we become roadkill much more easily. But if you're young and you're female, you should get a policy. It is so cheap. It's the cost of a pizza. I'm not kidding you. Buy it, right? And you have to get it while you're healthy because if you develop an illness, you can become uninsurable. What went on with healthcare in this country and healthcare reform did not take place with life insurance. There is no such thing as something that prevents you from getting insurance, that ensures that you can get insurance when you have a pre-existing condition. They can tell you no. If you've had cancer, you are not getting life insurance very easily. You're just not. Even if you wait a long time. Now, some places will insure you later on, depending on how long you've been cancer-free, but it's very difficult to do that. You can do it, but it's very difficult. But you want to get it if you can while you're young, while you're healthy, because the premiums are low, and you want to get it certainly as soon as you know you're going to be having children and bringing them into or somebody's, depending on your income. Well, those are some things about life insurance. I hope you learned real quickly. You can read a whole lot more about it, but the most important thing is to make sure that you are adequately covered with the right types of insurance. Thanks a bunch.